Hello, Namaste. Welcome to MD Speaks. This is Aruna Ravikumar, Senior Journalist and Author, and I will be in conversation with Sunil Srivastava, Managing Director of Balaji Railroad Systems. Hello, Sunil.
Hi, Aruna.
In the last episode, we discussed how BARSYL came into existence and how diverse personalities with a common goal came together to form this organization. So could you tell us something about how they started off and your entry into the organization?
Okay. Yeah, before, I think since each of them were very powerful individuals and they were also doing their own consulting, they actually had individual firms which were there. So, it was quite a interesting kind of time then, that there was no one entity which, as we know today, there was no BARSYL as we know today. Mr. Shankar Narayan, who was a mechanical engineer, had his consulting firm called Askus Technical Services.
Okay.
My dad, who was from the civil engineering side, had his company called Railroad Engineering, engineering services. And Mr. Arjun Prasad, of course, he was working as an independent. So when they came together, one was this individual businesses were still running. They had to merge them. They had no clue how to go about it. So they inadvertently started another company where all three were partners called Balaji Railroad Corporate Consultants.
Okay, let me understand this. They're all retired from the railways?
Yes.
At the same time, they had floated their own...
Exactly.
Okay,
more,
independent...
more not to act as individual consultants. So they created literally proprietorship kind of companies.
Oh,
so
very
that
interesting.
They could, so that's how. So they really didn't know the implications of what companies formation and things like that. But somehow they floated this third company, which is the precursor to what we are today. Balaji Railroad Corporate Consultants Private Limited was the company they floated. But they still didn't know how to merge and mix the expertise from other areas. And that point of time, yes, I was still not involved, but then I used to interact with them quite often and, generally more to understand what they were doing and to see how we could help them. But then they were also continuing to do individual businesses, so-called names, and also this. So that was a big confusion as to how the businesses should be shared and how, the expertise from one company could get transferred and things like that. So it is in that scenario where actually I got a little involved. So my involvement, though not on a full-time basis, but kind of started off there, because when they were doing this, I said, fine, this is all fine, but when do you think your individual companies will close? Or, what do you do with that? So that is the time they also were clueless. So I told them that I think first thing what you need to do is get all the expertise into one umbrella, because otherwise you will still have this confusion and commercially also each of them will be billing separately and things like that. So that is where I kind of guided them. I told them that this is it. Till that time I still had no clue that I would be eventually joining that company.
For them it was the second innings.
Exactly.
For you it was the beginning of your career.
So I was not even sure, because frankly I didn't even look at this whether it could make a career for me, because that point of time railway industry or railway consulting industry was virtually non-existent. So I was not even sure whether I could look at it as a long-term career. For them, like you rightly said, it was good. It was second innings, so even if it fails, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. But for me, it was a big risk. But then one of these days, yes, when they merged together and things like that, certain businesses started coming to them, because collectively. And that is the time where then they decided that, okay, if we need to do something, we need to grow. But they were also scared of growth. So that is the time they said that, no, we are not very sure whether we should take up new businesses or we should just refuse business. I said, who does that? So I said, nobody refuses business. But then they said, no, we don't want to add on more people. We don't want to get into that nitty-gritty and all that. And it just left it there, kind of thing.
So it was a challenge for you to get all these people together.
True. First of all, to make business sense itself.
Correct.
Though I was an outsider, so at least I could tell them something. But for me to jump into it was very, very difficult at that point of time, because I didn't see it as a sustainable business, frankly, that point. And also for me, I was happily working with a multinational, and then I switched to an advertising industry. So there at least I was having some regularity of income. Now here I was not even sure whether I would get that, because I knew how they were operating, where they were. I don't think they were able to meet their expenses also, or barely meeting their expenses. So I was worried that, so I didn't even offer. But then one of those days when this discussion came that, we are not sure whether we should take more business. So I said, but then see, this is your passion and you kind of set up these things. So it's not right for you to close, anything which you've done out of interest, even 4 or 5 years or something like that, it's not proper for you to close. So that is something where I got a little more involved emotionally with that. That, they put in their hard blood into it for whatever time. So it's not right for somebody to close this kind of business.
So how was it to get so many senior citizens and experienced professionals to listen to your point of view?
In fact, that was my first question when they asked me that, we have a choice, either we shut down or you take over or you run it. I said, why me? Well, that was my first question. Is there nobody else around? Because Mr. Arjun Prasad had two sons. Mr. Shankar had a son. Mr. Arjun Prasad's son were working for MNCs. Mr. Shankar son, of course, was younger to me. But yes, he was also, doing something in the IT industry. So I said, why only me, kind of thing. Somehow they said, no, since you've shown some interest, whatever. So, and others are not really interested in, they're too late in their careers and things like that. Not even interested in, because Mr. Arjun Prasad's son were in Bombay. I was the only one who was in Hyderabad. So that became the other kind of attraction for them. So when they told me this, I said, see, frankly, if I need to do something, if I need to run, my first question, like you rightly said, was that how will I handle you?
Exactly.
For me, that will be a challenge. Plus, I don't understand railways because I've been using railways more as a passenger. And so I know only from the outside part of it. So that amalgamation of the companies was my first test, which I told them that if you do this, I didn't tell them that I was testing them, but when they readily agreed, I realized that they were open to ideas. So that gave me the confidence that yes, if they are willing to listen to me, then yes, definitely they are more open to these kind. And I think yes, I would say my fears were unfounded. They were much more open. So when we did have a frank talk in terms of, when they told me that, okay, why don't you join? I said, okay, I'll do a step at a time. So I'll first take care of the physical part in terms of where you're traveling or where you're going out to other locations. I'll handle that because that is more, not so much of technical stuff. It is more on supervisory stuff. I said, let me handle that first. So that will also reduce some amount of burden from your side and also give me an insight into how things happen and give good learning from me. So that is how I got sucked in, I would say, into the whole thing.
So did you get some other person to help you in the merging all these different companies?
Not for merging the companies. Yes, our chartered accountant was there, auditor. He helped us in
some professional help.
Yes, he helped us in doing this. In fact, that is how even our name was. Because when we merged this company, the name which was given originally to kind of register was Railroad Corporate Consultants Private Limited.
Okay.
And there was a tender to be submitted. I still remember. I think about a week later. So this registration had to happen. So our auditor, when he was sitting with the registrar of companies, he called up from there. He said, sir, he spoke to Mr. Arjun Prasad. He said, sir, they are not accepting Railroad Corporate Consultants as a name because it sounds government. So there has to be a prefix to that.
Okay.
So can you suggest something? Mr. Arjun Prasad said, I don't know. Ask him what he is willing to approve immediately. So I still remember he gave us 3 choices. He said, Deccan you can add, add Balaji, you can add Charminar, because maybe that came top of his mind. So then across the phone, Mr. Arjun Prasad just put his hand on the speaker and said, do you have any problem with Balaji? Mr. Shankar and all of us said, yes, that's the best thing. Why make it geographical? We'll make it Balaji. And that's how Balaji was added to our name.
There's a story to the name.
Exactly, there's a story to the name.
Yeah.
So that was my first test when I realized that they were willing to listen to me doing that. My challenge was to understand railway without actually kind of going through a training program or without going through school, because there was nobody who would admit me also. There was nothing like a school or a college which would teach me. So you'll be surprised that the first thing actually I located through talks with these people is that railways have this training school actually. They train their own people, their own staff. So I asked them, they said, no, you can't join in railway because you're not an employee of railways. Okay. So then I said the next best thing would be to get somebody who was taught there to join us. So I actually was lucky to have identified who was also a colleague of my father, one Mr. G. Prabhakar Rao, who was the principal of that school. He retired as a principal and he was passionate about teaching. So I called him up one day. I said, sir, I want to kind of learn from you and I want to hire you. So he said, but I have retired, I have no interest now, and he used to stay in Sanjeev Reddy Nagar. He said, I have to travel to Secunderabad, too far away. And how many students? I said, how many? Because he thought it was a classroom. I said, no, it's only me. So he was shocked. He said, what do you mean only me? What do I teach you? I said, no, don't worry. You tell me whatever number of days you are willing to come. I'm there. I want you to. He said, no, let me come and talk to you first. And next day promptly he came and discussed with me. I said, yes, I'm the student and you're the teacher. So this is what I need to know. When I told him what I was trying to achieve, he said, yes, that is something interesting, that at least you're trying to gain knowledge to run this particular business. And somehow he had a high regard for both Mr. Arjun Prasad, my dad, and all that. So he said, okay, I'm willing to come for maybe 2 hours every day or every alternate day or something. So that's how my training in railway started. That we had one table, he would sit on one side of the table and I would sit on the other side of the table. When we wanted to kind of become a little more adventurous, we would go to parade ground and have our classes there under the tree to change this thing. We would just go there.
One-on-one.
Yeah, one-on-one, literally. So I was lucky that I could get 100% attention. So I went through formal training for almost 3 months. He took me around to various locations, various on-site training. He was that Mr. Prabhakar, in fact, he stayed with us for a very long time. So, but he was a very dedicated. Once he realized that I was also serious about it, he actually did a lot more. So it was
similar to the training that he gave his railway employees?
Yes, in fact, I had proper textbooks, I had proper notes to be answered. And then he would give me practical answers kind of thing, where I had to go and explain on the site, I had to explain. So I went through a proper, almost, I think it took me almost 4 to 5 months of training to understand, I would not say to master, to understand the basics of railway, where I could at least talk to people, through things. But my training in that sense continued, because I used to always, whenever I had a doubt, fortunately, the seniors were always available. They would give me class. So that is how my sort of entry into the organization had, more as a trainee, I would say, rather than any other issue. And then
it was good that you got proper training for 5 months from
that helped
somebody other than your father. And
absolutely. No, in fact, I knew that they would also not be so comfortable. First is because they were not teachers, whereas this gentleman was a teacher, and teaching was his passion. So I knew that formal training, but would be given by him. Then whenever I had a doubt, I could go to any of them, or literally I would pester them to answer and things. So that was something which they were very happy to answer. But as a structured training, they were not. I was not even prepared, excepting Mr. Shankar Narayan to an extent, because he had also been for some time a lecturer in an engineering college. So he also had a knack of training. But otherwise, others didn't know that. So that is how the whole thing kind of helped me, that yes, I could get the initial kind of confidence to talk.
The reason I asked you is, this is a value to anybody who's taking up something new.
Absolutely.
It's important that you actually learn about it before you get into
it. I'm a firm believer that if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be where I am today. That initial, whatever be the little amount of training, 3, 4, 5 months, but that is what laid the foundation. It did 2 things. One is it gave me confidence to talk to people, but it also created interest in me, in that whole industry. Because that is when I started looking at that, okay, if this is the technology or this is what it can do, then maybe there is a long-term career for me. And that is how, like I said, that initial trial for me then churned. So one of those days I had a talk with all 3 of them. I said, yes, now I think I'm prepared to give it a shot, but I have a certain kind of preconditions kind of thing. So they told me, they were very nice and open. They said, yes, let us know what is it. So first thing was that, yes, I should be allowed to kind of decide on business aspect of it, not on the technical aspect, but I would be allowed to. And they really agreed. They said, yes, you guide us and we are there to support you. The second thing I said, that I still remember I used to have 1 or 2 recurring deposits in the bank, which used to be my family. I said, I need at least minimum that much so I don't break that. So that much salary you have to give me. I don't remember the amount. It was some 700 rupees. So I said, minimum that much you have to give me so that my deposits continue. And whatever I used to have a motorcycle then, so at least my motorcycle fuel you have to pay me. I'm not looking at salary because fortunately I was staying with my parents. So I said, that much is what I need for sure. They said, don't worry, that is assured for you. We will take care of that. And then they gave me all the free hand to set up, set up processes, set up the organization in terms of how I wanted, what I need to do. So that is how the kind of entry, and that gave me the confidence that they were, very sort of supportive. That, yes.
So within 5 to 6 months, you were confident that you can continue.
I was confident.
Did it take longer?
Yeah, I was confident that I would at least have the initial meeting. So what I would do was, whenever I was going for a meeting or something, I would discuss with Mr. Arjun Prasad or my dad or Mr. Shankar Narayan, what are the likely questions they would ask kind of thing, or that are likely to come up. And I would prepare sitting with them. And those days, unfortunately, there were no mobiles. But then all of them told me that, no, anytime you need, give a call from there. You have any doubt? So what I was very clear, I would always tell whenever in my meetings that, yes, this is something which I don't know. I need to discuss with my seniors or the experts around and come back to you. Or if you want, I can connect them to you. So that also I was very clear about what I didn't know. So I didn't want to project something different to the customer or people who I was meeting. I was very frank with them that yes, up to this level I can discuss, but beyond this I will need to get one of our experts to talk to you or something, which in all fairness they also would have always accepted. There was no issue in terms of that I want answer now or whatever. So that kind of gave me the confidence. So I would not say that 5 years or 5 months was enough training. No, that only gave me the confidence that I could go out and at least have the initial dialogue and pick up more by observing or by attending meetings along with these seniors. So at least when I was attending meetings, it didn't appear as though I was totally unaware of what was happening. I could pick up, make my notes, and add to my knowledge. The other advantage I had was, like I said, since they were accessible to me and they'd given me free access. So even the smallest question, I would go to them, and each of them would spend substantial
clarification.
time. Yeah. They were also very, very liberal with their time. They would explain. They would even stupidest questions. Which now I think very stupid ones, but they would answer them all for me till I was satisfied that this is it. So that way, it's made my entry in that sense very comfortable, rather than whatever skepticism I had or whatever doubt I had. Yes, commercially I was still not very sure as to how long I would last or how long the organization would be able to sustain. But in terms of technical issues, I was very comfortable in that.
Obviously, building such a big organization is not all hunky-dory. There'll be some...
Absolutely.
There'll be some disagreements, there'll be...
True. In fact, initially quite a lot of funny anecdotes and things like that happened because, like I said, when we wanted to function like an office, because earlier, like I said, they would come at 10:30, 11 o'clock and sometimes go away at 3:30, go away at 4:30. There's not even a formal time as to when the office timings.
Yeah.
So the first thing I still remember, I said, so, I would like to start office at 9:30.
Okay.
So they looked around. Then I had to tell them that, no, you don't need to come at 9:30. But me and, we had an office boy and one lady as an accountant. I said, my office time will be 9:30 to 5:30. Because those days we used to still work Saturdays also. So I said, this will be the formal office time. So it took some time for them to understand that now we need to start working as a formal office, even if Correct. They are they can come in anytime. So I had to make it very clear that, yes, this is not for you, but first we need to lay down rules of the office kind of thing. So then we started from there. So this was, to get them to that mold was a challenge. The other thing was, a lot of times there would be issues in terms of the commercial process. They wouldn't know that how do you bid for a job or how do you cost your time. So they would say, but I'm just spending 20 minutes, so how can I charge so much or whatever. So I had to explain that it's not that 20 minutes, but then the support and your overheads and everything. So those were very challenging, because sometimes when I would come up with a number, they said that no, this looks unreasonable. So I had to explain to them why it's not unreasonable. We still need something to be left for the organization also and all. So these were but the challenges were always fun, I would say. Yes, sometimes you used to have great differences, but the differences, surprisingly, were more with my father than with the others. because in the office, one distinction we had made very clearly, and which I think I should give more credit to my father than to me. He was very professional in the office. He never looked at me like a son. Home was different, but the moment we got into the office, he never looked at me like a son. If I said something which was technically correct, meaning say commercially or also, he would never just overrule me just because he was my father. No. He would question me as this director of the company, he would question me. But if I was able to convince him or give the right answers, he would agree to whatever. Or sometimes even withdraw his concerns or sort of change his decision based on that. So that made it much more.
Probably he understood you better because you need to be logically explained.
I would like to, and some of the office staff I always used to wonder that how can the father and son have such heated arguments during discussion and then go back home in the same way car or something like that, or next day morning they are here again. So that is something which made me very comfortable, that we never took any of our work home. At home we were father and son, but in the office we were boss and subordinate. So that made it, I would say, the whole atmosphere for everybody also in the office then suddenly looked professional. It never appeared to them also that this is somebody, father, son, and some
not
friends,
like some family
some friends around and doing that. Yeah. They could make out that difference, that yes, even if I had to do something, or if one of the directors, for example, needed to pass something to me, they would check up first that whether I was free, whether I could go and meet them. So the message to everybody internally and externally was conveyed that yes, we are not like just a family run or a group of friends. We are setting up a professional organization. So that made it very.
But you didn't have any other consultancy firms at the time. You didn't. Last time also you mentioned
exactly.
that when you have to decide on the pricing or when you approach someone, you didn't have any other competitors.
So in fact, I think that is one, again, learning which we had. Since we couldn't price ourselves in comparison, I started looking around for what is happening globally. So
Exactly.
Though we never did any business globally, but I said at least we should know something about how costing is done, and through that, in fact, the other sort of interesting thing happened, that things like when I used to go to meet people, first thing they would ask me is, have you worked, or which railway have you worked, or which zone of the railways have you worked? So I would say I've never worked in the railway. So they would be a little puzzled that how can this guy be a consultant, or how can he work for a consulting company? So just to get over that, I thought I should have some degree or some certificate from the railways, which will at least give them that comfort. I asked all the railways, because these railway training schools, then there are certain other. Yeah, none of them were willing to. Everybody said no, unless you are employed by one of the railways, we couldn't. You'll be surprised, I finally located the American Railway Engineering Association, which was willing to give me membership. and I actually became the first Indian member in that association.
Wow. Okay.
I think this was sometime in mid-90s. I became the first Indian to be, because when I asked them, they said, but why do you ask? Because no Indian has ever asked us, kind of thing.
So you have to formally take membership?
Yes. So there was a small questionnaire and things like that, why do you need and what do you kind of work you do and all that. Those days there were no emails, only faxes around and all that. So that is how, and then they finally said, yes, we'll make a member. So that at least I had a qualification that yes, I was a member of the American Railway Engineering Association.
So what difference did it make by becoming a member?
To me, frankly, if you ask me, nothing.
Okay.
But I think some of the potential clients or somebody whom I was talking to, I think they started respecting me a little more.
Okay.
they thought that I had actually, and especially the word American always plays big words.
Correct.
Especially in India in those days. I'm talking of 30 years ago. India, America is a big thing. So they said, oh my God, if he can be a member of that association, then he has to be somebody.
So it was a value addition.
Absolutely, yes. That I thought it was a waste. I think those days it used to cost us $20 or something per year, or $25, but that also I found is a waste. But I think that was one of the comforts which other people had, that I could tell them that I'm a member here, so and so. So that made it. But again, having said that, initially I did have difficulty when I used to go to meet people. In fact, there would be, again, quite humorous things. When I was sitting in the reception, for example, and somebody would come out and say, Mr. Srivastava, to meet, and when I would get up, they would actually look through me and look around. Then when I told them that I am Mr. Srivastava, he says, but no, I was looking for a 60+ grey-haired person. What are you doing here? Kind of thing. Number of occasions this has happened to me. So then I have to tell them that, yes, I am part of this. Grey-haired people are sitting in the office. They are available. So these are, but then, like I said, yes, gradually people started kind of accepting that, yes, there could be. So in that sense, again, I would say we are, as a company, we are pioneers in setting up, or rather creating an industry in railway consulting. Earlier, nobody even expected, especially there was no private company offering this, while government rights was there, but then they were doing various other engineering consultancy. They were individual railway consultants. So as a corporate, so I think we opened up the market, or rather that sector itself, so to say, pioneered the concept of railway consultants in the private sector. So that, again, I feel very nice that yes, our founders had that vision, that rather than working as their peers were working, with individual names, they had that corporatizing and things like that. So I think that also credit to them that we pioneered this particular industry, and I felt very nice to be. A lot of people would say, but we've never come across such a company before. You are one of the first ones, kind of thing. So that helped a lot.
That's very interesting. First you get all these companies together, then you start injecting some professionalism, then insist on timings, and then you train yourself, and then you go and join an American organization to add value. So
in fact, a lot of things I had to do to create that corporate image. Because, for example, one of our big activities, apart from, of course, just the advisory part, was also doing hardcore track maintenance activity. It was purely a labor-oriented activity.
Okay.
Now, the clients normally would treat a labor-oriented activity as a contractor. Now, I didn't want to come across as a contractor. So, how do I change that is my first question. So, first thing I would do is, for every meeting, I would always wear a tie and go.
With that corporate image.
So the moment that engineer saw me, you would think, why I never seen a contractor like this.
This is not a contractor.
Exactly, exactly. So his whole appearance would, the interaction would change and things like that. And, proper design visiting card, because most of the contractors didn't even have visiting cards kind of thing. So those kind of things, so small things like this, which I consciously did, because a lot of time people in the office would also ask me, why you're going out in the field, why are you wearing a tie? So I would say, no, that is important.
So you were using your advertising background.
Exactly, to image building, yes, perception, changing the perception as such. And I should say that, yes, in fact, that actually had a direct impact, because a lot of our customers would actually, kind of look forward to meeting me, or look forward, or even the senior most, because the government is very hierarchy driven.
Correct.
Now, normally, see, most of our clients were, say, electricity boards and things. But then there I realized that even to meet the chief engineer, who was considered the head of the process, I would actually get an appointment. When I would say, call up, or one of my side persons would say that I'm coming on so and so date, and they would say, yes, we are available. So I think these small perceptions made a change in them also, that they started discussing that, yes, they could talk maybe more professionally to me, they could talk more technical to me, rather than just transactional kind of thing. So these are small changes I brought about. So it was
all about how you present yourself as well as present your company.
Absolutely, yes.
Both.
So even for a contractor, for example, purely for track maintenance activity itself, we created a small little brochure to show that it is not purely labor. There's a lot of planning which goes into it. There's a lot of technical stuff which goes into it. So we used to have something like, I create, these are some, like you said, challenges. Now these are not known to our bosses there, because systems were already in place in Indian Railways.
Correct.
For them, they didn't know how to create them. So I learned, thanks to Mr. Prabhakar Rao, who told me what are the systems. So we used to follow almost a similar system, even for our contracting practices. Same, like track maintenance. We had a weekly plan, which the site engineer had to send it to us, monitor that, give what has happened on that, then a monthly plan. So those were, of course, there's no emails around, so they would courier it end of the week and things. So even the customers started seeing this, that yes, this is something, whether we ask or not, they are giving us a copy, because we made sure that the copy went to the customer every week, whether he sees it or not. But as a part of our report, we would submit that this is what we have done, and this is the plan for the next week. So they could also kind of check. So these small changes is what we brought about, which were actually appreciated by the customers. And surprisingly, a lot of these government organizations, where it's a pure tendered kind of route, actually were willing to extend our contracts purely based on the work which we have done. They're willing to negotiate and say, yes, we don't call for tender, I want you to continue doing work for us, kind of thing. So these are things, which, like you rightly said, I brought from my other industry, which benefited the organization as such, and created a different image for ourselves within the industry.
So do you remember your first project, and how was it?
Yes, I remember, yes.
It's always special.
Yes, yes. In fact, two. One was on the sort of consulting pure advisory side, and one was this visit to one of the track maintenance side. So I'll talk about the advisory side first. Now suddenly one of these days, Mr. Arjun Prasad told me that there is this meeting with this particular client in Bangalore, and you have to attend that. And when I just went through the correspondence, I realized that there's some things which had gone wrong and delays and all that, and now I have to defend without even knowing the background. we had a senior person, of course, based in Bangalore, who was coordinating and those kind of things. And I was expected to meet. It was a Birla-owned cement company. I was expected to meet the CEO of that plant. So I said, "Oh my God, I don't even know what is this all about, or I don't understand cement, or I don't understand, what we are doing there." Fortunately, the gentleman who was monitoring the project from Bangalore itself, he was also a fairly senior gentleman. So I said, what I'll do is I'll come one day earlier. So evening, you please, guide me as to what I have to defend, or where they are wrong or what we are wrong. And then we will go for the meeting. So absolutely, that's what we did. And next day, when fortunately our gentleman at site was well prepared. So yes, while the formal introductions and all, again, usual thing happened, when the CEO saw me, he said, what are you doing here, kind of thing. That, he expected somebody more,
Senior.
This thing will come. When I told him that, don't worry, I'm here from the head office, then he was cool. And then, of course, we had a very good relationship with that. So that was a very nice, I was scared literally, but went off smoothly. The other one was one of our maintenance site. There, I think it was summertime, and, suddenly we said, yes, from the office they said, normally we go at least once in 2-3 months for inspection. So this time, why don't you go? So I said, yes, I have no problem. And they said the site engineer or whatever will meet you. Those days it was only train travel. He said.
Where was this? Which?
This was a place called Betul on the Nagpur to Delhi route.
Okay.
The MP Electricity Board had a fairly large power plant there, and we were maintaining a siding which was fairly long. It was almost 30 kilometers inland from the place. So I said, okay, fine, I'll take the train and they'll meet me there. So properly, yes, I went there. Middle, I think, literally lunchtime or something. The train halts there. Got down, the side person met me, and I said, "Chalo, let's go." So I was looking around. I thought maybe there'll be a vehicle, jeep or something. He said, "No, sir. Normally, when your other bosses come, they walk on the entire track to see."
Oh my God!
So I said, "What?" They said, "Yes, sir. That's why I didn't get any vehicle, because I thought same. Earlier also, Saab, when all used to come, they would say that yes, we'll walk." So I said, "Oh my God!" So middle of the afternoon.
How long is that?
Almost 20 kilometers of walk.
Oh God!
but that also taught me the importance of actually seeing work on the field. So after that, actually, I made it a point. Any of the maintenance sites, one day I would keep for walking. How much ever the difficult terrain, literally some of them would be filled with dirt, filled with muck, literally. But I would always walk. So with all the places where we've done work, physically I've actually walked maybe 2,000-3,000 kilometers of track is what I've walked.
My God.
And even today, some of those I can still memorize and say exactly what the area is like. So if somebody asks me today, I can give a clear picture. So that now I realize the value of people, of going to the site, of doing.
So what did you actually look for when you were inspecting the track?
Frankly, I didn't know anything. So it was more the site guy who would tell me, "Sir, this is wrong, so I'm correcting it like this." So I also used to pick it up from there, from them. Then I started learning, because initially it was, like I said, somebody from the office had to go to check more to see administratively whether things were there, because like I said, those days there was no cameras, no video, no mobile phones. So just to give them that confidence that somebody is monitoring them. So the idea was that somebody will go, because each of those places would be 40-50 labor, 3 supervisors, 1 site engineer. So at least to make sure, go and look at more there. I would look at more there, whether they're maintaining their records properly or not. Same, these inspection reports or their attendance sheets, accounts, are they disbursing salaries on time or not. My job was basically that, but also, yes, learn this. So a lot of times I would ask simple questions or see them how they are doing work, that particular activity which they've described in their chart, what are they doing for that. So that is also every time something new I would learn. So that, like I said, that I think I would say for any person wanting to get into any job, not just engineering, going on the field, if you're in manufacturing, going to the factory floor, if you're an engineer, going to the actual construction is unbeatable. You can't learn anything if you don't go there.
Even in days of today's technology.
Even today, because today is again only simulation, and that feel is not there.
Exactly.
So we can't replace everything with that automation. So when people say, for example, that okay, AI will come and replace. If you want to be a true good professional, not just an engineer, I feel if you want
have to be there.
Yes, you have to be on where the action is, and that kind of learning cannot be, I think, replicated by any other mode. That's what I feel that what my seniors taught me, that one-to-one learning and not online learning.
Correct.
And this on-field one. These were the two things which have kept me, growing and where I am today. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to answer, or I wouldn't be able to handle what I am doing today.
Fieldwork always gives you a different perspective of the actual working of anything.
True. Absolutely. I'm a very big votary of that. That any field you want to work in, you necessarily have to be, at least sometime you need to regularly spend on the ground to understand what it is like, to appreciate the effort which goes into it, because that also enables you to understand the effort which it takes to complete a particular task.
Yeah.
So you put up realistic targets, then you also are able to empathize with the people who are working there. So you understand the difficulties they have to go through, because rain or shine, they are still working there. So you are able to appreciate those things much better.
So you said you walked almost 2,000 kilometers of track. So how are the tracks? They're all different.
Oh, yes.
Did they throw up different perspectives?
Yeah, because see, for example, some of the track which we are doing was for Singarani Colliery. They were all filled with coal. So by the time I would finish walking, we would all be finished, literally jet black, literally. So and the hands, shirt, everything would be black. But we literally need to have a bath immediately after coming. Some of them were in iron ore mines where it would be red. Or
totally.
cement would be grey. So and some of those, actually were passing through certain small villages. So they would be actually filthy, dirty. You know how people use railway track for?
I know.
So we would actually see that kind of people throwing garbage, and we had to still walk on that. So I've seen all these kind.
People crossing the track.
Absolutely, and dogs there, sleeping on those track itself, all those kind of, because these were not very busy kind of track. You will have maybe 3 trains, 4 trains in a day. So people would use it for all sorts of purposes. And yes, I've walked all through, all kind of place. Very rarely I've come across a nice clean area where I could say that yes, it was comfortable walking. And also most of them were, like I said, timing wise, it could be sometimes in heat of summer, you'd still have to walk. So maybe I would still take it early in the morning, then I would start maybe 5:30 so that it was pleasant then, and finish off by 7:38, come back to the office. So these are some of the things which I found that yes, it was fun, but also sometimes irritating that, oh my God, what have I got into? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was a mix in that
So
sense.
you've covered many tracks, literally.
Literally, yes. Literally, true.
So on that note, I think, are there any questions from...
So this was my, I would say, entry.
I think it
into
was very, very interesting because the way you started, the way you learned, the way you went onto the field, and there is advice to youngsters that you have to learn up anything, whichever field or you are in.
Exactly. Say, whatever be the field, unless you are spending time on the action place, you cannot really, truly, grow or truly become a full-blown professional. So that is definitely my
So our learning today is you can't be a virtual person, you have to be real.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
And you have to walk the track.
Yes, I think that's equally true for a journalist also.
Yeah, true.
Unless you've been in the action, you can't be reporting from here.
Yeah, you see something, it's still very impersonal.
Exactly.
So suppose you see what's happening in Gaza, you still don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Unless you are there.
Exactly. So same thing I think is true for every profession as such.
So, I think we'll continue conversation in the next episode of MD Speaks.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, you got a question? Can read the question.
Yeah.
I'll just read it out for you. What is the first international project won by BARSYL? And what is your experience from the project? Question by Anand BARSYL.
Okay. I suppose everybody's heard the question. Yeah. So, see, international, okay, that's... I thought I would come to that in the next
episode, exactly.
but then since he's asked the question...
But because you joined an international firm, took membership, they want to know about international
true. In fact, that didn't help me get any job. we since again, like I said, having put my neck into this business, I realized that India was not big enough or not acceptable enough for survival. We had to necessarily look outside because there they were more open to businesses, or they didn't look at ex-railway people and things like that. So we were forced to look outside of our country. And it so happened that first opportunity for us came from close by. From Singapore, there was an opportunity which propped up. And that is where we started. This was the year, I still remember, mid-99 is where it started off. And that's where our first... I think my experience, I'll keep it for the next session.
Okay.
But that is where 99 is where we started off.
So you answered the question. So
yes, sir.
One more question.
Yeah. From R.K. Chaudhary, sir.
Yeah.
And the question is the legacy of relationship. What is the company thinking about diversification to road sector or tunnel ventilation and illumination systems in railways? So what are the growth plans pertaining to these segments?
Okay, though this particular question would have come much later in our sessions, but railway, yes, everything in railway is what we are growing into. It can't happen overnight. So yes, we had on, like I said, when we started, we had only track maintenance and some kind of consulting. We never did any. So we are adding on. But beyond railway, that was something which our founders were very clear. They said, this is the sector we know, and this is the sector we will always do. We don't want to depend on other field of experts where we will have no say. We will not be able to understand that what is being dished out is right or not. So that something is what I also follow, that railway has been our blood and railway has been our DNA. So we will stick to railways only.
So I think we'll end with a request. One more question. Is it pertaining to this this discussion, because everyone's going into the future?
Yeah.
One last question will take.
Yeah.
This is from and I'll just read out the question. Sir, if you were given a chance, or if you have not opted to get into this business, what would have been your career choice, given your talents and motivation?
See, I basically am a salesperson. So to me, my final thing would have been selling, which is what I do here also. So to me, it doesn't matter whether I'm selling railway businesses or I'm selling my company to, potential employees or whatever it is. Sales is my passion. And that is what is driving me. It's not that I consider myself to be a great railway expert or whatever it is, but if I have to sell well, I need to understand railway. So I would have continued to be a salesman wherever I was. Maybe if not this, I would continue to sell, which I started off with industrial sealants. So maybe I would have continued to sell that, or maybe sell shoes, coffee, I don't know what. But salesman is what I would have definitely continued to be.
So you can sell most anything.
I don't believe that I sell, what is that, refrigerator to an Eskimo. I don't believe in that. But yes, I love selling. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I think this is a good note to end on, and I request people to limit their questions to the episode. I mean, whatever we are discussing in our episode, and not go futuristic, because then we can discuss it when we go to the next episode. So it was very nice interaction, and the knowledge, that the field knowledge especially, and there is so much for everyone to learn from whatever you said. Thank you, Sunil. So we'll meet again in the next episode of MD Speaks.
Thank you.